want to go back to adverse action and commercial applicants. So when it comes to commercial applicants, we did the Reg B stuff earlier on today. So you can treat them the same as consumer. That's the path of least resistance. That's what I'm going to recommend. When somebody applies, whether a consumer or a commercial or an agricultural customer, if we say no, they get an adverse action notice. The same thing goes to everyone. We put the reasons on it, or we give them a right to their reasons. I would not recommend splitting hairs with the whole gross annual revenue thing, but you certainly can if you want. It's outlined in the book, and here it is kind of in a summary form. From an FCRA standpoint, let's look at the middle of page 37, letter B. A consumer report is a consumer report. Just because you're doing a commercial transaction doesn't mean it's not a consumer report when you pull a consumer report on somebody who's going to be individually liable in connection with a commercial loan. It's still a consumer report. They have rights, you have responsibilities. Now, we don't know, or we don't owe them adverse action notices if they're guarantors or co-signers, which in a lot of those scenarios they likely are. But if they're borrowers, if they're applicants, okay, so a DBA, a sole proprietor, then that's a consumer report in connection with a commercial transaction. They get adverse action notices, and again, they have all their rights, and you have all your responsibilities tied to that. B2, there's the personal liability. That's what gives you authorization to pull a credit report in those scenarios. If you don't have personal liability and still want somebody that's involved's credit report, you're going to need authorization directly from them. Commercial applicants, anybody that apply to any commercial applicant who is a natural person. So FCRA, remember, these are consumer reporting requirements and protections about people, not about businesses. So there's no FCRA responsibility to a business, but the people associated with the business that are personally liable, then there is a responsibility to them. It's individuals relative to commercial applications. And then there's obviously, for a third time, just to didn't catch it the first two, guarantors and co-signers are not applicants for adverse action. However, they are applicants for other aspects of Reg B. Reg B is a little funny like that. There are certain sections where for this we do one thing and for that we do another. This new 1071 thing, and they're doing the same thing there. They define applications one way in traditional Reg B and a slightly different way in 1071. That's not new. They've been doing it with applicants for years and applications for years. It's just the way it is. We need to be able to separate the definition of what it is relative to what we're talking about at that particular instance. All right, page 38 begins the Q&A from the last time. So one of the things we like to do with our webinars is, if we've done the webinar before, we bring to you the last round of question and answers. So starting on page 38, going through the end of the material, we give you the last Q&As from the prior version of this. What I want to do is invite Diane to come in. And one of the things with this webinar, we try to set aside a little bit extra time because there seems to be, and I'm looking the Q&A button here, there seems to be so many questions that come up. And if you remember back, I started this session off with, this is probably our most sought after training is this adverse action notice training. Year in and year out. Why? Because we don't always spend the time dotting the I's, crossing the T's, because what we talked about today doesn't make us any money. We want to get on to that next loan, that next whatever's that's gonna make us $1. This doesn't make us anything. In fact, we're going to lose money getting these off our desk. But in getting them off our desk, we got to make sure we dot the I's and cross the T's. And so hopefully there's some lights that went on or some clarity that it was provided along the way today. Let's see if we can do some of that here. I'm going to let Diane have the floor. Let's take some questions.